Si en un examen de historia nos preguntaran por el apellido de algún presidente de Estados Unidos asesinado durante su mandato, la inmensa mayoría de nosotros responderíamos uno de estos dos, Lincoln o Kennedy. Y todo el mundo sabe cómo fueron asesinados, ambos con armas de fuego. ¿Dónde? Lincoln en el Teatro Ford de Washington, Kennedy en la Plaza Dilley de Dallas. ¿Y a manos de quién? Lincoln fue víctima del actor John Wilkes Booth y Kennedy de Lee Harvey Oswald. Sí, de acuerdo, sobre esto último aún hay mucho debate.
Aproximadamente en el mes de agosto del año 1962, el mundo se vio sorprendido por la noticia de que la despampanante actriz había fallecido a la edad de 36 años. Transcurridos 60 años, Frank Sinatra reveló por fin la verdad sobre lo que realmente había ocurrido con ella.
RFK Jr. dropped some massive bombs last night on Tucker's show. These are deep state revealing bombs that are not going to make a lot of people happy, and certainly not in the CIA won't make the CIA happy. First, he revealed that if Trump asks him to lead the CIA, he would do it, but that the Senate would never confirm him, the House would never confirm him because they're too corrupt to confirm that nomination. He admitted that he'd be very bad for those people if he were put in charge of the CIA. Watch.
I mean, a lot of roads lead back, unfortunately, to our most powerful intelligence agency. If you were asked, would you run it? Would you become CIA director if you were asked?
I would never get, yes, I would, but I would never get Senate confirmation. As you know, the intelligence agency are protected by very, very powerful committees. And
the deep state individuals. He's right. I mean, you have some of the most compromised members of Congress sitting in those committees. Let's just give you an idea of the House and the Senate. On the House side, you have Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw, a guy who wants nuclear war with Russia and Iran. There is good old Dan Crenshaw, the man who absolutely loves war. And then, of course, you have like Mike Turner, also on the House side, serving Ohio's 10th district. There's the compromised Mike Turner. He's bought and paid for by the military-industrial complex, a guy who has fought tooth and nail to hide the government's secret UFO program, reverse engineering program, crash retrieval program. Of course, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is right in his backyard. And just so you understand the context here, UFO whistleblower, government whistleblower, David Grush, who blew the whistle on all of this, was on Tucker's show and explained basically how corrupt Mike Turner is.
Act, which is what funds the DOD and IC. But right now it's in a perilous position because, as I'm told by staffers on the Hill, the House Armed Services and Intelligence Committees are trying to block it, specifically Mike Rogers and Mike Turner. They believe it's duplicative. It's not going to assist Aero in any way. However, having
Mike Rogers and Mike Turner.
The Mikes. And the thing is this provides...
Two of the dumbest people in Washington. So just pure tools of the national security state.
So it helps them give top cover. It helps them declassify things.
Corrupted by the deep state, the military-industrial complex. You think they'd like RFK and they'd let him into the CIA? No way are they going to do that. But the biggest bombshells came around the assassination, of course, of his uncle, John F. Kennedy, the president. Trump had originally planned, when he became president, to release all of the JFK files. He didn't do that. Many of us were wondering why he didn't.
And yet, in his, in your joint appearance on Friday, President Trump introduced you by saying that he plans to, if elected, establish a commission to declassify the remaining documents around your uncle's murder in 1963.
Yeah.
And I think everyone at this point knows the truth, which is the CIA is implicated in that. Those documents protect CIA, maybe among others.
Well, implicated in that crime are alive now.
Yes.
And the last ones have died off in the last year or two. And so it clearly is to protect the institution.
Yes.
And that's wrong. It's just wrong. And it's wrong for a Democrat and it's wrong for a Republican.
It's just interesting, though, that a bipartisan list of presidents, these 6 decades, have kept those files classified.
Well, you and I have both. I was astonished that Trump didn't declassify them because he promised to during the campaign.
That was Mike Pompeo who did that.
Yeah, and that I talked to President Trump for the first time about that this week. And
what did he say?
he said that Mike Pompeo begged him to, and I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here.
No,
I think he told the same thing to you.
That's
right?
true.
But he said Mike Pompeo called him and said this would be a catastrophe to release these. You need to not do it. And then,
I want to say.
Sobre los decretos, porque es importante referirse a los decretos que firmó ayer el presidente Donald Trump, quisiera mencionar lo siguiente. Al primero, que tenga la certeza el pueblo de México que siempre vamos a defender nuestra soberanía y nuestra independencia. Eso es un principio máximo a la que la presidenta tiene que cumplir, que es la presidenta. Lo segundo es que siempre vamos a apoyar a las y los mexicanos que están en Estados Unidos, a nuestros connacionales, a nuestros paisanos. Esos dos principios son fundamentales y elementales para un presidente, una presidenta de la República. El tercero, que nosotros actuamos en el marco de nuestra Constitución y nuestras leyes, que juramos defender cuando juré ser presidenta de la República frente al Congreso de la Unión y el pueblo de México. Ahora, es importante siempre tener la cabeza fría.
Well, what if everything you've heard about the Oklahoma City bombing has all been a lie? The narrative that the powers that be want you to believe on what unfolded on that fateful morning in Oklahoma City. Our next guest is an investigative journalist, Derek Brose. He has a new series of documentaries called The Pyramid of Power, which is examining all of those individuals who are working behind the scenes that actually control us. We talk about the deep state, but who are these people and how exactly are they controlling us? Today, I specifically wanted to talk about a big piece of his documentary, the Oklahoma City bombing, because I think this is a narrative, this is a story that many of you probably don't know. And so we decided to welcome Derek here on the show to have a deep dive discussion about this. Derek, welcome into Redacted. Great to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me back, Clayton.
Welcome back here. And you've been doing some amazing work. Before we get into Oklahoma City specifically, can you tell our audience about this series of videos that you've been putting together, the series of documentary videos? And you can visit the pyramidofpower.net, which is the website, to see all of the videos in sequence. I have to say, every morning, I think a lot of Americans do. They have an awareness about whether maybe their teacher came into the classroom that day and told them what just unfolded. You learned about it. And we were all told a certain story about what happened on that fateful morning in Oklahoma City, the narrative that we were all told that the mainstream media ran with. And maybe you can paint a picture. What are we, before we get into your work on this, what is the narrative that we were all told? Like, what is the sort of, maybe I could say, fabricated version of events that we've all swallowed and been told, and maybe even, makes up many Wikipedia pages?
Yeah, absolutely. So the official government version of events says that on April 19th, 1995, at about 9:02 a.m., Timothy McVeigh, who is former military veteran, white supremacist, white nationalist, him acting alone with maybe one or two conspirators that the mainstream will admit, killed 168 people, including children, at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. The story is that he parked a moving truck, fertilizer bomb, and he parked it on the outside of the building. And the context because I was about 11 years old when this happened, so I don't remember it too well. I do remember headlines, but I remember 9/11 6 years later a lot more clearly. And to kind of put it in that context, this was one of the building up of promoting the idea that there is a rise in domestic extremism. There was much talk in the 90s about the militia movement. It's on the rise. And then, of course, 6 years later, you had the 9/11 attacks. And as I talk about in the documentary, current president and then Senator Joe Biden was part of passing this anti-terrorism, domestic terrorism bill right after the Oklahoma City bombing happened. And similar to after 9/11, we saw the Patriot Act. Joe Biden still claims credit for having written this bill and basically saying it was the basis for what would become the Patriot Act. So looking back, so we're in the 29th year now. Next April will be 30 years since this happened. We can see how that conversation has advanced, and there's continuing to be talking points from the corporate media saying that regular everyday Americans might be the next Timothy McVeigh or Osama bin Laden, et cetera. So much of the propaganda we see today we trace back.
Right.
With fervor in his voice, Jim Jordan makes a monumental declaration, asserting unequivocally that President Trump is the rightful leader for the nation.
So that is a huge issue that has to be in the bill, or we should not reauthorize FISA. It has to be in there.
And certainly the evidence is piling up. All these, suspicious activity reports, the millions of dollars going to multiple members of the Biden family.
Mr. Weiss has full authority to bring cases in other jurisdictions if he feels it's necessary. That was your response, Attorney General, to Senator Grassley's question on March 1st, 2023. You just referenced it when Mr. Bishop was questioning you. Only problem is he'd already been turned down by the U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia, Mr. Graves. 60% of the American people think there's a double standard at the Justice Department. They think that because there is. And you can see that with what happens to Hunter Biden and, of course, what they've done to President Trump, not just 8 days ago with the arraignment and the indictment, but what they've done to him for 7 years.
En Estados Unidos se revelan los vínculos de la CIA con Ucrania desde 2014. Televisión estadounidense ABC News y New York Times hablaron sobre la cooperación secreta entre la CIA y la inteligencia ucraniana, que comenzó en 2014. Ojo que no lo dicen ABC News y New York Times, medios estadounidenses. Según ellos, esta alianza jugó un papel clave en el fortalecimiento de la capacidad de Ucrania para resistir al lado ruso, pero también planteó dudas sobre la posibilidad de provocar el conflicto. Una de las principales figuras mencionadas en los materiales es el ex jefe de la inteligencia militar ucraniana, Valery Kondratyuk, millones de dólares para capacitar a especialistas ucranianos, equipar unidades de inteligencia y construir instalaciones secretas, incluidas bases cerca de la frontera rusa. Se prestó especial atención a la operación Goldfish, en la que la CIA entrenó a agentes ucranianos para que se hicieran pasar por rusos y llevaran a cabo misiones en Rusia y terceros países.
Pensar que la noticia que nos trae Miguel no le resulta novedosa. Claro, lo hemos dado por hecho durante tiempo. Por signos externos se sabía claramente que la CIA llevaba infiltrada tiempo, hasta el punto de que a día de hoy el servicio de inteligencia ucraniano, si es que se le puede llamar de inteligencia, es simplemente un apéndice de la CIA en la zona. Hace 14, ni más ni menos. Cuando nos encontramos con una noticia así, lo único que hay que preguntarse es por qué ahora se nos está diciendo una información que se ha estado ocultando de una manera un tanto escandalosa, un silencio escandaloso, y ahora se coloca en la mesa justo en medios que no son dudosos de atender a la política del establishment, como New York Times y como ABC News. Bueno, pues ojo, porque lo que está diciendo esta noticia es que Donald Trump va a ceder todo lo que Rusia quiera. Todo. Alguien dirá, no, está hablando de la CIA y está hablando de tal. No, está diciendo la noticia que va a ceder Donald Trump en todo lo que Rusia quiera. Y para que no quede evidente el estrepitoso fracaso de la estrategia de Estados Unidos, antes hay que cambiar por completo el relato. Miguel ya nos trajo una información hace ya un mes en la que Donald Trump estaba denunciando que tal o cual periódico debería devolver su premio Pulitzer porque había sido ganado en Estados Unidos por mentir sobre Putin y sobre Rusia. No era más.